Hi, my name's Jessica Bennett, and I'm the Director of Programs here at the Trevor Zoo. I have 5 tips for you today that you can do at home to help during Earth Week. The first one is to spend time outside. I'm going to share some web pages with you, and I hope you'll be able to have some time to look through them yourself. The first is the Children and Nature Network at childrenandnaturenetwork.org. And as you go down this page, you'll see, I'm going to click on this first infographic here, the health and well-being. I'm going to pull that up. And I just wanted to point out how important it is for us to spend time outside. So that's for babies, even pregnant mothers. There is a lot of scientific data that talks about how important it is for all people, even adults, to spend time outside. Increased activity level is improved for spending time outside, and even the social emotional well-being of our children. If you go back to that page, I want to point out again another infographic for the academic outcomes. And here I want to point out how spending time in nature helps focus attention, and even those ADHD symptoms are decreased with time outside. It improves mood and impulse control, so there's a lot of scientific data about how important it is to spend time in nature. I'm going to show you some times that I've spent outside with my son. Here we are picking flowers on a hike, and next I want to share with you a website on the John Muir Laws, so it's johnmuirlaws.com. And here I just want to point out the nature observation theme. So when you spend time in nature, just spending that time to sit and observe what's around you is really important. And this is a nice activity for those older students, so from 8 to 10-year-olds, this would be great. You don't have to have a special journal or pen or pencils, but if you do, that is great as well. And if you scroll down to the bottom of this, they have a lot of blog posts here. And I want to point out, if you're like me, you may think, I don't know how to draw a bird or any animal, so how would I do this? There are videos here on how to draw just about everything. So here's just an example of a video of how to draw bird feet. So you can find lots of videos here. It's very interesting. You could do this with your child and have fun learning about it, and then have fun going out to actually do that, that journaling. So going back to the slideshow here, this is my son and I out observing birds. So we have a pair of binoculars, and our task during this hike was to see what birds we could find. And he had a lot of fun just carrying the binoculars and trying to spot things through them. The last webpage I want to point out during this tip is Nature Play. So this is the National Wildlife Federation, so nwf.org. And if you go down to this page, it talks about what Nature Play is. It's really finding time outside to investigate, be curious, and find some things to play with. On this guide here that I'm pointing to, this download guide, this is really an awesome resource. I've used it for myself personally, but then also at the zoo. So I'm going to scroll through a few pages here. I want to point out just a couple of things. It's a 46-page document, so I'm only going to show a few things here. I want to show you the contents, the table of contents. So look at all of these awesome activities that are at your disposal, and this is a free guide, so definitely check it out. And then I'm going to go to that first one to show some Nature Play activity. And oh yes, and while I'm right here, the effort scale, definitely for those of you that are a little nervous about engaging in some nature play. There are some that have minimal effort and are much more simple, and then there are some with 5 shovels that have a much higher degree of effort and require more planning. So just know that they're rated and they do that work for you. So you can look through those documents. Here, this is just a 1 shovel, so fairly easy, just gathering different things that you find in the woods. And it even tells you what the materials are and steps and your objectives. So all laid out there just for you. Here are some pictures of our nature play. It doesn't have to be extravagant. Sometimes it can just be a puddle or some mud, letting them really be curious and find things of their own. This ended up being a boat race that we floated things across the puddle. And then this is a teepee that we have made at my home, and some tree climbing or bush climbing. All right, so the second tip that I want to share with you about what you could do for Earth Day is to create a habitat or home for wildlife in your backyard. And here on this nwf.org, there is a great poster for how to create a bird-friendly habitat. If you don't have materials, that's okay. You can also just think about providing water for animals in your yard, eliminating insecticides in your yard, or even keeping dead standing trees. So all of those things can help the birds in your neighborhood. Another one that I want to point out is from the National Wildlife Federation about certifying a habitat. So there's a lot of great information on here, and they do have some requirements that you need to make sure to explain what kind of food, water, cover, how the young will be raised and protected, and how this will be sustained. But once certified, then you get that great poster that you can put up, and that would be really great for you and your family to try out. There are some great additional information pages down here at the bottom. Native plants, that link will take you to show you what plants are native to your area. Native plants are great for our pollinators, but also they help with water erosion and soil, helping the soil. I'm going to click here on the butterfly heroes and showcase some other information here. Going into the Get Gardening. I'm going through a few pages, but there's some great information under Kids Garden for Wildlife. So here gives you some ideas of how you can work with your children in the garden and some ways that you can engage them. There is the Ranger Rick magazine that you can sign up for, and that will get you some additional resources if you do choose to subscribe to that for the crafts and outdoor activities. But you can also click on this printables link, and that will give you some more free activities as well. And lastly, I want to point out not to forget about our bats. So we want to care about our pollinators and our birds, but also bats are really important. There are a lot of great bat instructions. This is just one that I found on the web of how you can make a bat box, but those bats are really going to help us with our mosquito population. So don't forget about those bats. And this could be a project that you could do with your family. They give you the required materials and they show you what tools you need and sort of how to set it up, and then you could take all that information and build yourself your own bat house. This is a box that's designed for monarch butterflies, so not exactly the same as the bat house, but there are also butterfly boxes as well that you could construct. Our third tip for you today is how you can make good pet choices. Here at the zoo, I get a lot of questions about what makes a good pet. We do a number of presentations with some of our exotic animals, and all of those animals that we use for those presentations are captive bred, and we're part of AZA, which is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. So it's important to know that all of our animals come from a specific zoo environment and are captive raised and acclimated to humans. Very different than possibly trying to get one of these animals for a pet. Now, when you're thinking about a pet, you really need to think about what they need to survive. So food, water, shelter, and all of that is really important and will change depending on what animal you decide as a pet. A dog is going to have very different food and water requirements than a fish. So try to think very carefully about what that animal eats, how often it's going to eat, and how much that's going to cost before you get that pet. Another thing I want you to think about is shelter and how long that animal lives. So does that animal need to live inside your house, or can it live outside? Does it need a lot of space to run, or does it need to go for a lot of walks, or does it only require a small amount of space? How long is that animal going to live? Some of our pets could live a very long time, and some are going to live a short time. If you decide to choose a turtle as your pet, that turtle could live 30 years. So really think about those choices before you think about what pet is good for your family. Lastly, I want you to really think about what kind of animal. Lastly, I want you to think about where you're going to get those animals and make sure it's from a reputable place, a breeder, or perhaps a rescue organization, instead of contributing to the black market trade for pets. Here is a photo of my 2 dogs that were rescue dogs, and I hope you think about considering that as well. The 4th tip that I have for you today is to use less and share more. This is the New York State NYSERDA.ny.gov page, and this is about thinking of your energy footprint. And there are a lot of things you can do. There are also some options that may not be available for you. So you'll have to think about your lifestyle and what is appropriate. If you can, an electric vehicle would be wonderful to invest in, or even carpooling, or if possible, biking or walking to work. Now that's not always feasible for all of us, but there are things that everyone can do at home, like buying power strips and LED lighting. There are smart thermostats now that make it much easier for you to control your temperature in your home and to lower the temperature when you're not there during the day and increase it, or vice versa if it's the summertime. When you're thinking about heating and cooling, think about if you need it to be as cold in the summer or as warm in the winter if you're here in the Northeast, like we are. You may be able to adjust that temperature just a few degrees, which can make a big difference. There are also some loan incentives for things like energy efficient equipment in your home or even solar at your home. I myself have some solar panels and have used the energy efficient loans for spray foam at my house, and I know that has made a big difference. Now I'm going to move on to plastic, which has gotten a lot of momentum recently, mainly from our youth movement, which is awesome. Unfortunately, on this picture of this website, you're seeing a lot of plastic, and this gets washed up on the beaches often because our trash makes its way down into the ocean, and unfortunately it affects a lot of wildlife in the ocean, but also on its way in that direction. So I'm going to point out a great tip here for you on how you can reduce your plastics. So you can use a shopping bag or a reusable water bottle that will cut down on those disposable cups and bags. Saying no to disposable straws and cutlery. So you could buy yourself a reusable bamboo one and say no to that plastic. Even bringing your leftovers in a glass jar. So there are a lot of great tips here, and again, look at that campaign. All of these links here are great to check out, so make sure to go back and look how you can reduce the amount of plastic in your environment. Next, I want to talk a little bit about water and things you can do. Just at home, you could take a shorter shower. So every minute you reduce the amount of water running is important, but also thinking about your food. When you reduce the amount of meat that you eat, you're actually going to decrease the amount of water needed to process that meat and also to grow that meat. And you're going to decrease the amount of greenhouse gases Agriculture contributes to 1/4 of all the greenhouse gas emissions on the planet and is one of the major contributors to climate change. So if you can lessen the amount of meat that you eat, even in one meal a week, or perhaps even go to a plant-based diet for one meal, that would be hugely helpful for your footprint. And here, this is a food print. So you may have heard of an individual carbon footprint. Here, this is a food print, and they have little calculators down here. This goes to show about all the food and resources that go into making your food. So if you click on this food calculator, it has actually a number of different calculators that you can check out and take some quizzes to find out what your food print is and how many resources are going into producing the food that you actually eat. So the last tip of this section is to share more, and I want you to think about how we can build community and try to waste less. So say you have some extra groceries or something's going to go bad in your fridge. Before it does, try to think about your neighbors and build that community. Now more than ever, it's important for us to build community. Try passing that on to someone else and share those baked goods or some of those groceries to your neighbor so that it doesn't go to waste. But also think about equipment and what you can do to share with your neighbors or other friends so that we don't have to all purchase our own equipment for our yard. Possibly you could rent a rototiller, or you could borrow someone's drill instead of purchasing your own. Our last tip is our 5th tip for what you can do is to say it loud and proud. Share what you have learned with those around you and encourage your friends and family members to make those changes, even if they're small. I want you to continue to encourage everyone. The more we share and talk about this, the more we'll make a difference. And if you're old enough, definitely get out and vote for those environmental laws and things that help our planet. I want to thank you for tuning in with us, and hopefully you'll find these 5 tips really helpful. Thanks. Bye.